Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival. My name is Katie Farmand, and I am the editor of Edible Orlando magazine. But this year, for the first time, I'm so excited I get to come out here and introduce you all to some wonderful food and beverage professionals. And today we have one of Walt Disney World's very own chefs, Nanor Harboyan. I told her I would try to roll my R's, and I did. She has been with the company for 2.5 years. She's a chef at the Contemporary Resort for Chef Mickey's and Contempo Cafe. So how many of you have dined at either Chef Mickey's or Contempo Cafe? One of our really fantastic character dining spots, and a great quick service at the hotel. So we have a lot to talk about with her, and she has brought us an Armenian spin on a sort of classic Greek dish, which I'm really excited to hear more about. So please help me welcome Nanor to the stage. Welcome.
Hi.
Did I roll my R's okay?
You did perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you so much for trying.
Welcome. Yes, I know. I said I'll do my best, because the way you say your name.
Nanor Harboyan.
See, it's so beautiful.
She did
when she
perfect.
says
I wasn't being. Thank you.
So, we were talking a little bit backstage how your family is Armenian, and
yes.
And so this dish that you're going to make us is kind of has Greek roots with your Armenian sort of spin.
Yes, it does, exactly. I feel like every culture almost has some kind of food that's stuffed or in a little pocket that you can take to go. So this is a very, very old dish. They've even traced it back to the Byzantine era, where they used the grape leaves in order to, as a vessel almost, for rice or meat or whatever they had available. So this twist is an Armenian version, which of course my grandmother used to make when I was a child, and even today, when she has the time. It is a little time consuming. So it is a vegetarian style. So this is one that we make for the holidays. And even though it's vegetarian, it's very, very rich because it's based on a very good olive oil. So that's almost the protein in this case.
That sounds wonderful. What are some examples of Armenian dishes that are some of your favorites?
Honestly, it's such a mashup. Everything in the Middle East in that area is very similar. You have your hummus, your tabbouleh, your kebab, but every region, of course, has its own spin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and tell us a little bit about Chef Mickey's. That's a buffet, is that right? And it's
yes,
character
it is.
dining as well?
It's one of the character dinings that we have on property, probably one of the most popular, because of course we have Chef Mickey, and who doesn't want to see Chef Mickey? We have Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Pluto, and Goofy. They come, have a great time with the kids and everyone that comes to join us for dinner. We also have brunch as well as breakfast.
That's so much fun. And how many meals a day do you serve there?
Almost 4,000 guests. So
a
for
day.
breakfast,
Wow.
yes, we'll do over 1,000 for brunch, a little less than 1,000, and then also for dinner, about 1,300. So very, very busy place.
High volume, yes, absolutely. And it's always so good too. So that's
Thank you.
That's no easy feat, we know.
Thank you.
So all right, get us started on the
Yes,
recipe.
okay, let's go ahead and get started. So if I remember how to turn this on.
I've got to hold it down a little bit. There it goes.
Thank you. Okay. So this does have a couple of steps, and this is traditionally part of a meze meal or something you'll have for the holidays. So it's not a main course exactly, even though I like to have it as such, but you'll have a variety of different things, whether it's that hummus, tabbouleh that I mentioned, little samosas, things like that. So this will accompany that meze, and that idea is really good for families or get-togethers or potlucks even. It really gets people going and talking and being a little social.
Absolutely,
okay?
yeah.
So we'll get this started. I believe I have my onions back here.
This would be a really fun idea for a cocktail party because it's something a little bit different. How many of you have had stuffed grape leaves before in one way or another? So it's something that's a little, familiar, but maybe this twist might be kind of something different.
Yes. And most people, honestly, when they've had it is either at a restaurant or they actually sell them packaged in jars, which if you've had that once, you'll never have it again. So,
especially if you've ever had them handmade.
yes, exactly. So we're just cutting our onion. This is a regular white onion. You can use yellow, but you definitely don't want to use a red or a sweet onion. It really will not complement the flavors here.
Did you want your pan on? Because I can do it for you.
Oh,
really
yes,
quick.
please. Thank you. So when I'm cutting an onion, of course, I go pole to pole. I leave the little root intact. And I also like to keep the peel intact. That gives my fingers, of course, if you're a home cook as well, that gives your fingers something to hold on to so they're not in danger. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go horizontally first. Oh, excuse me. And of course, a sharp knife is very important. And then we're going to make our cuts going this way. And you do want to take the time to make an even dice. That way your filling will be nice and cohesive. Okay? All right, and then you can grab onto that root and continue cutting. If it's not small enough, of course, you can make a little pass right through. Thank you. And this is my chef assistant, Heather. Actually, she works with me at Chef Mickey's.
Hi, Heather.
Okay.
And I've always heard the saying, the sharper the knife, the less you cry. So is that true with onions? When it's really sharp and it will go through,
yes,
you
it'll
don't
give
have
you
to...
a clean cut. Honestly, some onions make you cry and some don't. Does anyone know why? And you do? Yes, exactly. It's the sulfur gas in the soil, right? So depending on where your onions come from or where they're grown, that makes the difference. I'm actually not crying today, so we're in good shape.
And you have a nice sharp knife. So.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'll be eyeballing this over here, but of course you have your recipes. So if you have any questions, please let me know. So this is just a vegetable oil. We're going to go ahead and saute the onions in. And of course I have my Mickey spatula. Okay. Let me see if I have a little bowl here. All right. And unfortunately, I feel like I love to eat. I feel like I missed out on a lot of good food when I was a child. You know, you have your a picky palate. So when I was growing up, I did not like to help my grandma make this, nor did I like to eat it, unfortunately. And now I'm begging her to tell me her recipe. So
yes, I know you realize it once you get older, and you're thinking, wow, I really missed out.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we have like a nice medium heat here, looks like. So we'll go ahead and add our onions. And I like to add a little salt right at this point. That'll help draw out some of the moisture of your onions, and it'll go a little bit faster. All right.
You went to culinary school in Italy, is that right?
Yes, I did. I went to college in Los Angeles, which is where I'm from. But we did a study abroad program with Florence University of the Arts, and that's where I took my culinary courses.
There's no better place maybe to learn culinary skills than in Italy.
It was a selfish decision. I do love Italian food, especially Northern Italian. So, okay. So as that goes, we'll go ahead and make the rest of the components. Let me just clean up here. Okay. So this is not a bouquet. This is my parsley. Most people do purchase flat leaf parsley. This is curly. It does have a different flavor. You wouldn't think so, but it does have a much more assertive flavor. And because we're going to be cooking this for a fair amount of time, we'll go ahead and go with the curly parsley. And again, when my grandmother, my father's mother actually, I remember her sitting in front of the TV with a colander, picking all the leaves while she's watching her Days of Our Lives or whatever it was. Yep. So unfortunately, I don't have that kind of time. So in order for me to cut this a little bit easier, of course, a sharp knife we need. I hold it by the stems, keeping my fingers back. And I'll just go ahead and shave everything. And you're not losing too much. You can set that aside for a stalk or something that you might need. And then we'll just go over, pick some of the big ones.
But the top stems are pretty tender, so you don't have to worry too much about getting just only the leaf part, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Saves you a little bit of time there.
Yes.
My mother-in-law is Palestinian, and she was amazed when I told her that there is a flat parsley. She didn't realize that was also parsley, because that's really, in Middle Eastern cooking,
this is almost the only thing we use.
Really what they use, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that looks okay. So again, you want to go ahead and gather in a ball. This will be the easiest way for you to mince this amount of parsley. So you want to go ahead and gather it up. And you don't want to chop fresh herbs too much, or else you will kind of ruin the delicate flavor. And again, this is going to be in our rice mixture, so you want it to be a nice mince, but nothing too crazy.
So not super fine, but just small enough that it's not a big chunk of parsley in your filling.
Exactly. And like I was mentioning, this is good for parties, especially for the holidays. That's usually when we have it, or for Lent, of course, since it is vegetarian. But you can go ahead and make the filling ahead of time. All right.
And do you serve these warm or room temperature or cold?
Personally, I love them cold the day after. In the middle of the night, I just go and grab one. But usually you will serve them right after you make them, and they come out of the oven. You let them cool down with I'll show you how we're going to do it a little bit later, with a weight on top. and then you'll flip them out at room temperature. So again, very good for make ahead. Okay, so go ahead and leave that at that. Work on the filling a little bit. Okay, very good. So you're just looking to sweat it. Over here, you don't want any color. Again, once it starts to brown, it starts to get a little bit of sweet. And we have all our dried fruits, so we don't want the filling to be too sweet. Okay. If I can make this a little hotter. All right. This doesn't get hot here, right?
No. That's the beauty of the induction. It's a little tricky to figure out how it works, but you can use it as a work surface, which is really nice.
I need to invest in one in my house.
It just takes a little getting used to, because chefs are used to just turning on the stove, a flame comes up, and they're good to go. So when chefs come on this stage, they get a little bit sort of confused why the pan isn't hot right away.
So now we're going to introduce some more flavor to the filling. Now, if you've ever seen this type of rice, it's a medium to short grain, and it is similar to sushi rice, but not exactly. It's called California Rose. I have a lot of California pride, so it's called California Rose. And again, it's short grain. It's very, very starchy. It's a little different than sushi rice in that when you cook it, it gets I don't want to say mushy, but it becomes very cohesive, so you can't really tell the separate grains. And that's the beauty of it. It has a really nice mouth feel. Okay? And it's milled usually with a little bit of sugar or something, which makes it really nice and shiny like that. And here, what we're going to do, pan looks pretty good and hot. Excuse me. So anytime you use tomato paste, whenever you can, you want to caramelize it so it doesn't taste too raw.
That's a great tip. So when we're doing even when we're making a tomato sauce or something, you suggest cooking it first a little bit?
Yes, exactly. You'll release a lot more flavor. Of course, we're already seeing some browning. You want it to be a nice rust color at the bottom of the pan. And we're also going to toast the rice. Again, that's very, very important. I don't recall my grandma ever doing this, but it does really help the rice taste a little better and also cook easier. Okay, so you want to pick up some of those brown bits. Heather, can I have a little pitcher of water? Thank you.
So on your days off, do you cook at home?
I do. Whenever I can, I always like to try something different. Go to the farmers markets that we have in Florida. We have like blueberry picking, strawberry picking, whenever it's the season, so.
And what's your favorite thing to cook at home?
Ooh, a lot of stuff. I don't know.
You mentioned Italian food. Do you make a lot of
pasta
dishes? Yes, I do make a lot of
and things. Of course. Fresh pasta or gnocchi or whatever it may be.
Lovely.
Okay, so again, we want to pick up some of those brown bits. So you can let that caramelize a little bit longer, but all right.
The goal there is just to get a little extra flavor and, like you said, a golden kind of color?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
And if you cook the rice like we're about to do here a little bit on the stove, the leaves won't burst on you when you're cooking them a little bit later. So we're going to go ahead and deglaze it. Just a little bit of water. Of course, you can use vegetable stock if you choose. Okay, so we're just going to let that absorb some of the water.
And where can we find the California Rose rice? Is that something we can get online, or?
You can definitely get it online. If you have any kind of market in your area that has an international aisle, they almost always have it in the Middle Eastern section, sometimes even the Asian section. And if you cannot find it, any kind of short grain rice will work. Preferably sushi rice would be the best. Kind of give you a similar texture. Okay.
It almost becomes a little creamy when it's cooking. Is that right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right. So we'll let that absorb a little bit more. And we also have the dried fruits. I like to add the dried fruits now because, again, this mixture is going to soak up a lot of water when you are cooking it. You don't want it to scorch, so you kind of want to hydrate these fruits ahead of time. You can steep them in wine, in vinegar. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to the mixture. And I'm using golden raisins here. Armenia is very, very famous for dried fruits. We have awesome dried fruits that even when they are dried, they seem fresh. They have such a nice flavor and texture. So whatever you can get your hands on. But instead of these raisins, what we usually use is currants. Dried currants, they're much smaller. They have a little more of a tart flavor, so it'll be a little bit more balanced and not too sweet. But these golden raisins should be fine. Okay, I have a couple of apricots, which I'm just going to go ahead and dice up. And again, you want everything almost similar in size, otherwise it will stand out in the final product.
Okay, that's a good rule of thumb. So everything kind of the same size.
Yes,
the parsley, the onions, the rice.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add some of the apricots.
I hear some yummy noises out there. Is everybody
we're
getting to
eating?
taste?
Okay, very
yes.
good.
What do you guys think?
Good.
So far, so good? Yes.
Thank you.
Just one.
So we'll go ahead and add some of the cranberries. Again, not traditional, but just to replace the currants, I chose to do the raisins and the cranberries, give a balanced flavor.
It gives it a nice sort of holiday spin, too, with the cranberries there.
Yes, it does. So we can go ahead and add our spices. Over here I have dried mint, and this isn't always readily available, but this is what I grew up with, eating little sandwiches with cheese and dried mint on top always. So if you can't find it, of course, you can use some fresh. Just make sure you chop it up nice and fine. So we'll add that.
And if we're using fresh, should we use less or more of the fresh product?
You will use a little bit more. The dried has a more pungent taste. So we'll go ahead and add salt, pepper, just to taste. And then this is a red pepper powder, not too spicy, but has a really nice, again, sweet flavor. It's kind of the profile we're going for. So we'll add that in as well. Lastly, we have walnuts. Again, Armenia is very famous for walnuts. We pick them off the trees green, and we'll put them in sugar syrup and have them as dessert. So we really love our walnuts, but the key step here, is to toast them. If you've ever had a walnut not toasted, it just does not have the same flavor. So we went ahead and we toasted these walnuts, and we chopped them up, but what I like to do is run them through a sieve, because as you'll see, all this powder that's coming through will really almost ruin the texture of the rice. So you want just the big pieces and keep those sandy bits out.
Yeah, toasting walnuts also brings out the crunch in them too.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It is like a totally different product.
And we do want that crunchy element here because the fruit, the rice, of course, everything is soft. So this is crucial. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add that. That's for me. And we'll go ahead and transfer everything back to our bowl. Just scrape off any of the brown bits that you have. And again, that rice is sticking a little bit, but that toasting is really beneficial.
Good flavor
for the
there.
flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, can you give this for me? Thank you. We'll go ahead and add our fresh parsley. Again, lots of parsley. It's going to cook down, so you want it to be obvious.
And it's nice that it's going in now, so it will cook, but it's still got that bright, fresh flavor.
Yes, exactly. So the mixture is finished. I'm just going to add a little bit of the lemon juice. We'll also cook it in lemon juice.
So with the sweet fruits, and then we have the tangy lemon juice.
And then lastly, we have the olive oil. Again, this is probably the most crucial ingredient. You really want to take your time and pick out a good olive oil. If you were to use just vegetable oil or something else, it really will not be the same. So you want a nice, bright, fruity olive oil. Something, of course, European would be good, Spanish, and I would, of course, recommend a California olive oil, which would be good too. Okay? So we will add a hefty amount. Again, imagine it's the holidays, so we need to put that holiday weight on.
Well, and it's heart healthy, so it's really, it's quite good for you.
Okay, so again, a good amount. You want it to look quite wet. And as you can see, doesn't that just look like the holidays already in the bowl?
It's so beautiful.
Okay. So that looks pretty good. So again, you can make this up to a day, almost 2 days in advance. And of course, you want to chill it down. For the sake of time, I'll go ahead and show you how to roll one up right now.
Yes, which I think is what we're kind of all probably really interested in, is to see the actual process.
So I had Heather with me yesterday evening when we were rolling about a lot of these. It does take some time. Again, this is where you want to get your kids involved. Some you don't like, whatever you choose. So we'll get our pan. May have that hotel pan.
During the holidays, though, that is kind of a social thing to get in the kitchen
Yes.
all together. And
yes.
We're rolling grape leaves today, everybody.
So there are generally two types that you can find. This is probably the one that's most available. Again, it is from California, usually out of Fresno. There's a very, very old Armenian population over there, and they have a lot of fruit farms, fruit orchards. So grape leaves is a big commodity over there. And these, of course, are much more expensive than the other ones that you may find from the Middle East or wherever it may be. But just think about it, less shipping, less packing, so they're a little bit more fresh. Ideally, in September, almost through October, when orchards are picking their grapes, is when you can get fresh grape leaves. And of course, that's the best one to work with. Very well worth the hassle if you could find those. Just blanch those super quick in some boiling water and then chill them down and then use those. So we have these kinds, and then this is another one. This is a Greek product, and these are picked in the spring instead of the fall, so they're super, super tender. That's actually what we made yours with. So they're much easier when you're biting them, because sometimes that vein that runs through the leaf is a little bit tough, so having the smaller, tender leaves is a little bit better. So as Heather and I found out yesterday, when you're taking these out of the jar, you want to be very careful, of course. You do want some that are a little bit torn, and that is going to go ahead and line the bottom of your pan.
Okay. And that just kind of gives it a buffer, a little place to go?
Yes, exactly. Otherwise, you may end up scorching the bottom. So you can do this in a saucepan, or you can do it in the oven, depending on the volume. If you're making a lot, I would suggest the oven. So we'll go ahead.
If you're going to go to the trouble of rolling grape leaves, you may as well just make a big batch.
Exactly. So you want to line the bottom. Again, you could put just the ugly ones over here. And then we'll save the big, beautiful ones for the filling. So these are packed in a brine. I went ahead and I rinsed this one. But if you, again, when you open a fresh jar, you do want to rinse it. They're packed in usually vinegar or salt or something. So you do want to rinse them off.
Oh, that's delicious.
Thank you.
And the filling really is kind of creamy.
Yes, isn't it?
With the oil and the short grain rice. That's lovely. Very nice.
All right. So that should do. Now, let's pick out a nice one to show you how to roll it. Okay.
You're drinking the Festival Chardonnay as well, which is a nice kind of, I like to say, a middle ground Chardonnay. So it's a little bit buttery, just a little bit of oak, but not super heavy on the oak. And it's nice and fruit forward. So it actually pairs really nicely with the dried fruit in there, yeah.
I think that's a really nice pairing. Traditionally, you will have arak, which is an anise-flavored liquor. It's like 120 proof. So for the holidays, right? Okay, so how much filling you're going to put on depends on how big your leaf is. The trick here, most people actually cook the rice mixture entirely and then wrap it in the leaves. Not so good, because here you want it to kind of grow and expand in the leaf, and it'll be nice and solid. Sometimes if you get them and the rice grains are falling out, that means they cooked the rice beforehand instead of cooking it all together. So we want to cook it all together. It'll have a nice, beautiful shape like a little cigar. So we'll center the filling. And again, you don't want to have too much. You want it to be loose and tight at the same time.
You probably learn as you go.
Yes, exactly. So we'll go ahead and fold the first one over, and then, of course, the two sides. And as you can see, I'm leaving a little bit of room in there because, of course, that rice is going to expand. And then you just roll it away from you. And there you go. There's one.
It's easier than I thought it would be. Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and put it seam side down, of course. Let me go ahead and just do one more for you.
I heard oohs and ahs. Are we impressed? That was pretty. Okay.
And again, these vary so much in size that you want them to have a similar circumference so that they'll cook, but they're not all going to be the same length.
Okay, so we can have a little bit of a longer one, and that's not as big of a deal, but it's how
Yes, it's the
thick.
circumference. Yes,
okay.
exactly.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put a little bit more. And again, you want to mix that filling well so you get a little bite of everything. The fruit, the nuts, all of that good stuff.
But it's kind of fun. Each one is slightly different. So one might be a little crunchier, one might be a little sweeter, which is kind of nice too. Varies it when you're eating them.
Okay. Heather, can you bring me a couple that are already cooked, and I'll go ahead and make a plate. So you want to go ahead and line them up, and you want to fit them as snugly as you can. They don't have to be an exact side-by-side or any shape that you can, but they do need to be snug. And once we finish doing that, I was going to mention these parsley stems. If you don't have any of the torn grape leaves to spare or you don't want to spare any, you can also line the bottom with parsley stems, even bell pepper tops and bottom, something extra vegetables that you may have, just to keep them a little bit elevated so they don't scorch underneath. Okay.
Add a little extra flavor as well, I bet.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plate one for you. In the meantime, when we are going to cook these, and here I'm going to go ahead and do it in the oven. Let's just imagine that this is all full. You want to do a little mixture of lemon juice and water. And that lemon juice is very crucial, again, because it's going to cut through all of that olive oil. So you do want to add that lemon juice when you're doing it. Okay, so I have my other pan here. And usually we use a clay press, which is round and it has some holes to let the steam out. Of course, I don't have that here. So we're going to go ahead and you can use a cake pan of similar size or whatever you may have. You do want to press it down with some pressure, so about 5 to 10 pounds, whatever you can have. If you have any pie weights at home, old beans that you're not using, anything really that's going to be oven safe. So we'll go ahead and press that down, and then you just put it in the oven.
And just pressing it, does that just kind of ensure even cooking?
Yes, exactly. They'll cook evenly, and they will also keep a nice shape, and they won't all just float around in the water and start to unravel. If your oven has a convection setting, I do recommend using that. They'll cook much more evenly, and that is, of course, the fan that some ovens have. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and plate one for you. Thank you. Okay. So we had a little something spread on the bottom of your plate. It's just a lemon cream. We ran out of lemon, so I went ahead and I used this Buddha's hand, which has a really nice floral, citrusy note. Almost has no juice. It's only good for its zest. So that's what I went ahead and put in here. And again, this is all optional. My grandma would never do this ever. So please do not feel obligated.
She might be a little terrified of this random citrus in her kitchen.
Exactly.
Mutant.
But it does, it will reinforce that flavor. Okay. And it's creamy too, so it'll kind of complement that olive oil.
And so what went in the lemon cream what besides?
It's honestly just a double cream. So reduced heavy cream, a little bit of lemon juice, and then the zest of the Buddha's hand. So you could plate it however you like. Of course, if you're doing family style, I would just flip the entire pan over when it's done cooking. This is just for your benefit. Okay. All right. We also have some extra walnuts, and when those walnuts cook, they do get a little soggy. As much as we toast them, they will get a little soggy. So for a little bit extra crunch, we have a nice walnut powder.
And is that just finely ground walnuts?
That's just finely ground walnuts. Did you put anything else in there, Heather? And just salt, yes. You do want to put that salt as you're grinding it, otherwise it'll become walnut butter. So you want something a little bit abrasive to prevent that from happening.
Which doesn't sound too bad, but not what we're going for. Yep.
All right, let's see. What else? Oh, my greens. And again, just to reinforce that lemon flavor, when it cooks, it does die down a little bit, but just to reinforce that lemon flavor, we have these lemon threads, which is just lemon zest that we used. We took it off with a little reamer, took the white pith off, and then we quickly pickled them in a little bit of white balsamic vinegar and pink peppercorns. So again, not necessary, but nice to have.
A lovely touch, yes.
All right. And just a little green on the plate, so we think we're being healthy. There we go.
But truly, there's nothing terribly unhealthy about this whole dish. It's good whole foods, and you're making it yourself. There's not a lot of anything bad for you.
All right. Okay. And then we just went ahead and added just a little touch more of that olive oil to the plate. All right, that's about it. Easy,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think for a cocktail party that would be lovely, but if you were going to plate it up, man, people would be really impressed with all those little touches. How about any questions? Yes, ma'am. So the recipe says a stock pot.
Yes, exactly. So if you're doing a small portion, like a few dozen leaves just for your family, the stock pot is much easier. A small pot, of course, will keep the leaves a little bit better. But here, since we did it in such high volume, we use that rectangular pan, and that way you can cook a lot more at once. So either way will be fine.
Yes.
Yes, I see.
So are grape leaves a staple of a Middle Eastern diet?
Actually, very recently, they found one of the oldest jugs of wine, a clay jug, in Armenia. So we have a very, very old history with grapes. And of course, we use almost everything in its entirety, whatever it may be, meat or poultry, so grapes included. So we go ahead and use those grape leaves as well. Sometimes even fig leaves are used as well. We do love our figs.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Which best is?
So I used to go picking with my grandmother, but I never really learned what you did with them afterwards. So when you get the fresh ones, you just blanch them, and you blanch them in water or hot water and salt, or
Yes.
So if we're working with fresh grape leaves, what's the process there?
If you're working with fresh grape leaves and you want to use them within a day or two, you do want to blanch them in salted, hot, boiling water. Yes, exactly. Once you take it out, you want to drain it, and then you want to shock it in cold water. That'll hold its color and also its texture. If you're not going to use it day of, I know my grandmother used to can it home style, so you can do that as well if you're handy that way.
and then the brand that you used for these was what? Can you hold up?
This one is Orlando.
No, not that one.
The grape leaves. The other one is Johnsel Valley. This one is Greek, and these are the ones that were picked in the spring.
Great.
All right.
Hand back in the back.
I can't hear.
Just as we hear, there's a crying child trying to intercept your question. What kind of dried fruit could we substitute if we didn't have these?
Honestly, whatever you'd like, or you can keep them out entirely. You want something reminiscent of the holidays, again, like those raisins, currants, like I mentioned. If you don't have it, just leave it out. You do want to avoid something that's totally out there, like dried pineapple or papaya. The flavor profile just will not match. So if you don't have anything similar to this, I would just leave it out. We did have the candied figs on your plate. You can also use some dried figs if you were to have those. Dates would be nice also.
Great. Did I see a question here? Yes. For the lemon cream on the bottom, how can you just briefly go through the steps for
Of
that?
course, that's very easy and very versatile to use in the kitchen. It's just a double cream. So if you were to purchase some heavy cream from the market or wherever, you just want to go ahead and reduce it by nearly half. So it'll be nice and thick. Yes, exactly. And then here when we added the lemon juice is actually the trick that makes it a little thicker because it curdles. Technically, you can't really taste it on your palate, but the lemon, that acid, will cut the fat and curdle it and make it thicker.
Great. Yes. Where can we find the grape leaves? In a supermarket or?
Yes, again, if you have a larger chain grocery store that has a supermarket aisle, I guarantee they will have it. They become very popular. They are a little bit more expensive because it is a specialty product. I would recommend purchasing it online if you would like. I think that would be a lot easier.
Any more questions? Yes, in the back. How do we candy the figs, or did you buy those?
No, we candied them. So we purchased them dry. Of course, they're mission figs. We quartered them, and actually Heather helped me with this one. It's a basic caramel, so I just eyeball it. As much sugar as you like, probably about 2 cups should cover about a pound of figs. We're gonna add a few drops of water just to moisten the sugar. Of course, you don't want to get that water on the edges of the pan, or the sugar will crystallize. So you just want to moisten that sugar. It'll be almost like a wet sand at the beach, that kind of texture. You go ahead and put it over a medium-high heat. As soon as it starts to boil, you do not want to touch it. You don't want to stir it or anything. Again, it'll crystallize if you do so. So we just put that over medium-high heat. Keep swirling it, but you don't want to introduce any kind of utensil in there. You just go ahead and keep swirling it until it takes like a nice amber color. As soon as it does so, we added, cayenne pepper. cayenne pepper to give it a little bit of spice, and took it off the heat, added the figs, folded them. We actually did this yesterday, and because Florida's so humid, they didn't stay as crisp as we would like to. If you do them day of, they might be a little bit better and stay crisp. But we did this the day before, so that's why they have almost a glazed texture.
Great. Yes, right here.
The lemon cream.
So that was the one she said where she reduced the cream.
Yes, so you just want to reduce heavy cream by half, add an acid. Of course, we use lemon juice in this case, and then the lemon zest. Take it off the heat and strain it. You should chill it for about 4 hours, and that acid, again, will curdle the cream and make it nice and thick.
Yes. Can we make these ahead and freeze them?
Unfortunately, they're not the best for freezing just because the leaves are so delicate. They would not take well to reheating. What you can do is if you have this mixture and if you had bell peppers or Mexican squash or even zucchini, that would be a little bit better. But again, you really want to, if you were to do the squash, you really want to take that the insides out. Again, it has a lot of water. As soon as you freeze that, they're going to be ice crystals and they're going to destroy the texture of the vegetable. So probably bell pepper would be the best to freeze, or a scooped out squash. Yes. This mixture, I do not see why you couldn't freeze it. This mixture would be fine, and maybe you can wrap them whenever you can.
Great questions. Anybody else? Well, how about another big round of applause for Chef for sharing this beautiful dish and a little bit of your heritage. That was lovely. And for our culinary team, and Heather, was it? Yes, on stage, who did, and I know you brought some more of your helpers, and to our hosts and hostesses and servers and our AV team as well for putting on a great show. So we hope
Thank you all
have
for coming.
enjoyed
I
it.
really appreciate it, and
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.